So a bunch of people on Twitter have been asking me about the polls because if you read mainstream media, according to them, Bernie Sanders is plummeting and nosediving into fourth place, and according to CNN, Bernie's in big trouble, big trouble. Like he might as well pack it in. That's how they're acting. Like post Dem debate, the new hot thing again is Kamala Harris. And there's still Elizabeth Warren right there because they had great, presentation at the debates, which they did. Credit where it's deserved. That they had good debates. Bernie was strong too, right? So, but there's now this narrative that the establishment is trying to sell and get into everyone's brains. They're trying to get in our heads that Bernie is like losing steam. He might as well just drop out now, and like all the momentum is behind like Harris and Warren. Which, if you actually nosedive into the polling data, is actually not true. There is actually two like huge voting blocks. Excuse me. Where Bernie does really, really well. And this, will make a huge difference in voting. So in this video, I'm going to go into that. And for one, to help you, because this is going to be a very long race. And when the polls come out, instead of reacting to what is initially seen in the polls, is to get you in the habit of like reading the press releases and diving into the actual numbers of the polls. Because you will see a different story going on when you deep dive more into the actual numbers. And so in this video, I'm going to go through some of the recent polls, a few of them where Bernie's in fourth place and one where he's in second place. So that's another thing. Like he's all over the place. Is he fourth? Is he second? I mean, what is, where is he at? But, the two big areas, okay, we'll just get to it. The two areas where Bernie is kicking ass, like leading the pack, is in the youth voters 49 to 18, and particularly the 30 to 18 voters. And wait for it, the other big group he's doing well with is people of color. I know. I know. Last time in 2016, that was his big problem. Well, he can't win the people of color vote, right? He just like only white people. That's where like the Bernie bro myth started, right? This time around, Bernie is doing really well with people of color. In fact, in some of the polls, Bernie's doing better with black voters than Kamala Harris is, okay? Like that's how well he's doing with people of color. So, we'll get into that little data a little bit later, but okay. Youth vote and the people of color vote. See? Two huge demographics that can make or break this primary race. Now, with the youth vote in particular, what's significant about that is in the midterms, the 2018 midterms, Gen X through Z, Gen X, Y, and Z outvoted the boomers and the silents. They voted more. They showed up and voted more, which is surprising because traditionally in most elections, it's the older voters who come out en masse and it's the younger ones who tend to stay home. Not this time around. Oh no. Excuse me. The youth voters like came out more en masse. And another important piece of data is that this year in 2019, the millennials took over the boomers as the largest generation in the United States. So now there's literally more of them. So that's way more potential votes than the boomers. So that's a big deal because everybody already knows that Bernie already polls high with the millennial vote, and he's showing that with Gen Z as well. But like this is monumental. So the issue is that the older voters come out in higher percentages, and the younger voters come out, even though there's more of them, they come out less. Like in California, the under 50s, actually I think it's the under 40s, It's one of those. The youth vote in California, they tend to only come out like 18% to the polls, whereas the over 50s come out at like 45%. Like, huge difference. Like, the older people are like, oh yeah, it's voting day, let's go. The younger people, not so much. However, if we got more of the young people to vote, then that makes a huge difference. So again, in California has the most millennials, 10 million in the United States. So last time around, Clinton won by like 2.7 million votes. So if we got like 2.5 million millennials just to come out, I mean, Bernie wins California. Like, he can crush California if just the millennials came out in force in this state. Okay, that's how powerful we're doing right now. But are you gonna hear that in mainstream media? No, they're not gonna mention that. They're not gonna talk about that. So let's get into some poll data numbers, okay? And here's some recent polls, again, where it looks like Bernie, they have Bernie in 4th place, but when you actually look into the numbers, he's kicking ass again in these key areas. So the Economist YouGov poll, where Biden is at first at 23 and Bernie's at 9. With the 18 to 29 vote, Bernie kicks everybody. When you combine the very favorable and the somewhats, he's at 42. Biden and Warren are next at 39. Okay, in the 30 to 44s, again, Bernie's kicking everyone's ass at 45. Biden comes in at 41. Then we get into the black vote, and Bernie's at 56 and Harris is at 52. Okay, with the black vote in here. And then the Latinx Hispanic vote, Bernie's at 39 and Harris is at 33. Okay, Biden is up at 42. So this is one of the polls where Biden actually beats Bernie in his Latinx Hispanic vote. But in most cases, Bernie is like, he's winning the Latinx Hispanic vote. So that's one poll. Okay, so now we get to the CNN poll that, like, everyone always talks about the CNN poll. When we look at, like, just the Dem voters, not total respondents, just the registered Democrat voters. When it comes to the non-white, Bernie beats everybody at 76, okay? Everyone, 76. And then in the 18 to 49s, 76 again, okay? Kicking all the butts. Okay, and just for perspective, again, so with the non-white vote, Warren is at 61, Harris is at 60, and Biden's at 76. So Bernie and Biden tie there. But traditionally, Biden has always, like, kicked everyone's butt in the non-white category. And again, this is something else to mention with the people of color vote. So I've been noticing this in some of the polls. They'll have just white and black, and in other polls they'll have white, black, and Hispanic, Latinx. And then in some polls they'll include Asians, and then in other polls they'll have white, black, Hispanic, Latinx, and then other. But in a lot of cases, the pattern seems to be more white and black or white and non-white, which I think is interesting. I didn't pay attention to the polls so much last time, so I don't know how it's different this time. But that's interesting when you have just the white and black votes and don't include the Latinx Hispanic vote, because in big states like California, Texas, like, that vote matters a whole lot, and it's really important. Okay, so this was interesting. In Quinnipiac, again, Bernie beats everybody in the 18 to 49 vote. But this was interesting. In terms of, they asked, who do you think would be a better leader? Bernie, like, beat Harris and Warren by a lot. Okay? So Bernie was at 21, Harris was at 15 and 6, with black voters, okay? So black voters thought Bernie would be a much better leader than Harris, okay? By 21 to 15, which is a lot. And then in the youth vote, right, the 18 to 49s, Bernie again kicked ass. They all thought that he would be the better leader at 24, where excuse me, Harris came in at 12 and Warren at 15. In the ABC News Washington Post poll, now this is interesting because we all know Washington Post hates Bernie Sanders. The area where Bernie came on top, which was actually surprising, I was kind of surprising, but completely awesome, is women's issues. I know, right? Like, women's issues. He came in at 27, and then Harris and Warren came at 13 and 16 respectively. So Bernie is doing like almost like twice as better like in the women issues than the women candidates, okay? With in this poll. And then same thing on immigration. They thought that, again, Bernie was at 27 with immigration, and Harris and Warren came in at 13 and 15. And then on the economy, like, Bernie came in second at 26. And then Harris and Warren were at 10 and 11, okay? So, which was interesting that Warren, with all her plans, because she scores high with having, like, great policy, but when it comes to voters thinking, well, who can actually, you know, fix the, you know, make the economy better, Bernie polls like more than like 2.5 times her or Harris. So, okay. And then, again, in that same ABC News Washington Post poll, again, Bernie polled the highest between Bernie, Harris, and Warren. Bernie polled the highest at 23 with the black voters, and Harris came in at 11, and Warren was at 4. And and again, with the youth vote, he was kicking ass at 32%. Now, this was a poll where he came in second, okay, as opposed to the other, like Quinnipiac, CNN, and, excuse me, The Economist, YouGov, like he came in 4th. So, but he's been consistently ranking the highest with the youth vote and people of color. Consistently high. And then in some of these polls, you know, these voters are like, well, who do you think will be the best at certain topics? Like, and Bernie comes in the highest. Like, again, in the ABC News Washington Post, I mean, women's issues, Bernie came on top, like, on women's issues. So, are they going to talk about that? No. Mainstream media is not going to, they're not going to say, oh my God, like, you know, Bernie does really well talking about addressing women's issues. No, they like to pound on him on that, right? And something else important to notice that I've also noticed in these polls is that Harris, Warren, and Buttigieg, they primarily do well with college-educated white voters who make over $100,000 a year. And then Warren and Harris do much better with voters over 50, okay? And Warren does better with voters over 60. So they're getting a lot of the Hillary supporters. So Warren and Harris are kind of duking it out for the Hillary supporters right now. So it'll be interesting to see as we get into more debates and as things go on. But, you know, again, we're doing really well, okay? I mean, so again, the mainstream media is not going to tell us that. And again, when you go into the polls, look at the youth vote and look at the people of color vote and also income. Bernie does really well with people who make less than $50,000, which means he does well with the poor and low-income people, which again, most of those people, again, are people of color and younger people, right? Because we're now in this thing where especially millennials are in this downward mobility compared to their parents and grandparents. So there you go. So in the description, I will put a link to these polls and to Real Clear Politics, which like lists all the polls. It's great. Like you can follow them. And I recommend that you go into the polls and deep dive into the numbers and look at the patterns, okay? The establishment doesn't expect anyone to deep dive into the numbers. So that's where I'm coming in to help you point out that we're actually doing much better than Bernie and not me us. We're doing much better than mainstream media wants everyone to believe. So keep at the ground game. Keep at it. Canvas. Knock on doors. Table. Talk to your circle of family and friends. Like, educate them. Unmatrix them from mainstream media. Like, point out the poll datas, again, of the youth vote, people of color vote, low income. Like, share with them that narrative that's going on. And again, continue in the ground game, and we will continue to do really well. And next we have coming up, the next debates in a couple weeks.